just make sure that they sign in the sign-in sheet. Thank you for meeting us here today. I look forward to sit here. My name, by the way, is Roxana Bettis Stevens. I'm an attorney from Denton, Nevada, and I have been designated by the city of Laredo to act as the lead negotiator on behalf of the city, to include the city manager and the city council in these negotiations. We look forward to working together on accomplishing a collective bargaining agreement that is beneficial to both the firefighters as well as the city. And we look forward to working with you collaboratively and openly in order to achieve those. Sometimes these problems or these issues that we face tend to get very technical and complicated, and it requires some out-of-the-box thinking and creative thinking. And I want to sit here and let you know that is, we're willing to do that, and we will be as creative as possible to achieve both a beneficial contract for everyone, to make sure that the firefighters are properly compensated for the essential and important services that they provide to this community and to the city. And at the same time, to be fiscally responsible and make sure that we can sustain being able to pay those compensations and be able to properly pay for or compensate the firefighters, as well as continue to provide the very high quality of service that you all have achieved here in this town. This is the initial meeting. We received the notice of intent from you within the timely pursuant to the contract, and we acknowledge that. And then we also, I just want to acknowledge on the record, because I know that we've done it by email, but I want to acknowledge on the record that I also received the amended notice of intent that also advises that Rafael Torres is going to be on your team as well. And Rafael and I have a very good working relationship, and we've worked on a lot of these issues together. For the initial meeting today, what we're really going to accomplish is, number one, identify the bargaining teams and introduce each other, kind of an icebreaker, so that we all know who we're dealing with. I have a feeling we're going to be spending a lot of time together. Mm-hmm. And so I think that introductions are in order, and that way we can get to know each other. We'll do that. And then what we'll also do is we'll go over some ground rules. I have some proposed ground rules to present to you today. And they're essentially identical, or essentially the same to the ones that I believe that were signed in 2018 is what I had in my records. After we go through the ground rules, we'll present them. We'll go ground rule by ground rule. We'll discuss it. There are some blanks that need to be filled in, such as team members and information that we need from the association. But if there's any issues that come up, we're going to discuss them through and see if there's an agreement that can be made if it's not already agreeable. After we do the ground rules, the last thing that I would like to accomplish here today is have a general discussion of the schedule. I think we need to start setting at least some initial bargaining sessions after this initial meeting. And then the first bargaining session after this initial meeting will actually start the 60-day clock. We want to talk about the format, how we're going to accomplish this. And the format includes the location, to make sure that you have a comfortable place to caucus, and that you have the necessary resources that you need on your side to get the information and the stuff that you need to do your side of the negotiations. And we kind of just want to generally talk about the structure and the content of how the negotiations go through. As you know, this is the first time I've negotiated for the city of Laredo, but I'm very familiar with collective bargaining negotiations, and you know, every city has its own personality, and I want to make sure that we accomplish what we need to there. So I'll go ahead and I'll start with the identity of the bargaining teams. And what I'll also do, it's going to be reflected in the ground rules, but one of the things that we can also do is also provide a letter to you that actually lists them out. That's what I've done in other cities, just so that there's, you know, it's just easier to find in case you're looking for names. There's one piece of paper that you can pull up. Like I said, my name is Roxana Bettis Stevens. I'm an attorney and I'm the lead negotiator from Denton, Nevada. Our firm has been designated to help negotiate and lead these negotiations. My colleague Rebecca Hayward is going to be the other lead negotiator. Basically, she's going to be my backup.
Okay.
There may be a time where it's either her or I. Will let you know. And if there's a time where both of us will be here, we'll also let you know that as well. On my team, I have, I'll go ahead and let everybody introduce themselves.
Rosario Cabello, I'm the Deputy City Manager for the city. I've worked for the city for about 22 years. Prior to that, I was in finance. So now,
Hello, my name is Jesus Esparza. I've been with the city about 25 years. I represent payroll and budget.
Hi, my name is Linda Teniente. I'm the Human Resources Director. I have been with the City of Laredo 26 years. And yeah,
Good morning, my name is Homero Vasquez Garcia. I'm the Director of Information Services and Telecommunications. I've been with the city a little over 12 years now.
And we are missing one team member who is under the weather and not attending today, and that is Juan Caballero from the City Legal Office. We also have just support staff, since Juan is not here, and we have a paralegal. I'll let her introduce herself, and she's taking notes for our side on this time. So she's just support staff and not actually on our team. Okay. And then
on our behalf, my name is Carlos Lozano. You can call me Charlie. Currently, I'm the union president, was recently sworn in January. I've been with the department for 19, going on 20 years, and collectively, we come to the table on our behalf.
My name is Oscar Delgado. I've been with the department for about 7 years already. I am the second vice president of the local 72 association.
Hello, my name is Jose Luis. Usually go by Tony. My middle name is Antonio. I'm the local 872 vice president. I've been with the department for about 10 years.
And we are missing members. Our Sergeant at Arms, Victor Torres, he couldn't make it due to a little family emergency. Our district vice president from the state association, which he's also a Laredo firefighter, Aidana Navarro, and on behalf of the TSAFF, Ralph Torres, which currently is not present, but is not present.
yes, yeah, and I spoke to him. He was sorry he couldn't be here, but his schedule didn't allow. He has a pretty tight schedule. We need to get on it.
Yeah, he told me about it.
So, okay, we are now, so now let me pass out the proposed, and we'll just use this as a template. What I've kind of looked at what the history, I've asked what the history is and how you like to get proposals and things like that. I've seen that you like paper copies. But what I like to do also is if we need to, especially to show the legislative changes, red lines, things like that, I will go ahead and email it to you as well. And that's not currently in the proposed ground rules I have, but we can put it in there, or it's not a requirement. But usually that's how I deal with it with Ralph and all the other cities that I do, so that we have one document that we're working off of. And what I'm going to do, for instance, the ground rules, I used the template from the 2018 final one. So I literally pulled that one up and use that as the template to update it. When we're using, when we go into the actual proposals, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create one contract document, make sure, and I'm going to compare it to make sure that it is identical to the signed PDF that we have. We will designate it. I will send it over to you so that your team can do the same and verify that it's the proper document. And then we'll agree to work off of that one document so that we can, there's not 5 million different copies going around, and we'll work like that. Okay, so let me make sure this is the one. Here's the 5 copies, and I'll email it to you after we go through them. Or do you want me to email it to you now?
That's fine. You can if you want.
Okay, let me do that. don't remember what do you want to write down what your email is? Since it's being broadcast. Do you remember? I'm gonna copy Rob as well, so he has it. And I'm sending them to you in Word. I'm not gonna make any promises on the formatting, because I was fighting with it earlier. Okay. Let me know when you're ready and I can start going through it. Okay. So this follows the format and is, the substance of it is essentially the same to the one in 2018. You see, the first difference there is a purpose. I thought that one of the things that I think gets lost during negotiations a lot of times is what the purpose of these negotiations in the ground rules are. And I think the purpose is nothing more than is a mutual statement that I'm going to read it, but nothing more than a statement saying we recognize the issues and they're difficult issues and we're going to do our best to work through them in good faith, basically. And I'll read through the purpose. And I just think it's really important because when we're going through things and there's a lot of times that we're not going to agree and we're going to have to find our way through that, that we just remember that this is the basis of where we're coming from. And it basically just establishes the purpose of why we're even doing these ground rules. And it says the purpose of these ground rules is to establish guidelines for the negotiations of a successor collective bargaining agreement between the association and the city. The association and the city recognize their long-term interdependent relationship. The parties acknowledge a mutual interest in working together to resolve their differences in a manner that is fiscally responsible and provides a desirable work environment for employees and high-quality, uninterrupted service to the citizens of the city. The parties have agreed to pursue, to the extent practicable, a joint problem-solving approach to labor negotiations in an effort to establish a working relationship based on trust and cooperation rather than confrontation. To this end, the parties commit to open and honest communication and a sincere effort to understand each other's point of view about issues which must be resolved. The parties will strive to achieve creative, sustainable, and fiscally responsible solutions to issues that are mutually satisfactory to both of their interests. And it just says these ground rules may be modified in writing by mutual agreement of parties. Do you have any questions on the purpose? No? Okay. The second part is the bargaining teams. This one, I think because I was kind of counting on the people that I want on my team that are going to be accessible to me to have the resources and the information I need, I kind of counted using off of what I was using, and I didn't know how many you used. But what we're looking at is each respective bargaining team shall consist of no more than 6 members, and that does not include the chief negotiators, seated at the table. And if you look at the letter B allows for the parties to designate, I think in the past you have designated 2 chief negotiators, and we will be doing the same. And that's where we need the information from you. We need to know who the chief negotiators for the association who they're going to be. Because ultimately the chief negotiator will, as we read through the ground rules, will be the person that runs the meeting from their side and calls on people. From our side, we're designating the chief negotiators as me, Roxana Ifedis Stevens, and or Rebecca S. Hayward. And the designation of the chief negotiator may be replaced only by the directive of their respective clients, the City of Laredo and the association. That meaning that I can't say, hey, you need to get Charlie off of here, you know, it's just something like that, where each party makes the call on who the chief negotiators are. Do you know at this point who the chief negotiators are gonna be for your
We're
side?
actually gonna talk about that right now.
Huh?
We're gonna caucus on that right now.
Okay. Okay.
Do you want to caucus one?
Yes.
Okay, well, okay, do you wanna just go through the, let's go through the whole thing,
Okay, that's fine.
and that way, you can caucus about any other issues that you have. I think it'd just be more efficient,
Yeah.
and then we'll do that.
Sure.
I just didn't know if y'all had already designated or not.
Yeah.
Okay, C, the initial members, and this is where we're listing ours, and I need to confirm that and double check that this is what I had already said, or the city has said as their negotiating team. The initial members of the bargaining team for the City of Laredo shall be the lead negotiators, so that will be whoever is designated on that section B. Rosario, and on my side, Rosario Cabello, Juan Caballero, Linda Teniente, Jesus Esparza, Homero Vasquez, and then we have the alternate members may be members from the Health and Benefits Division and the Finance Department. That means that if for some reason Linda can't be here, that you know, we'll have an alternate, and I think that there's some notification provisions that continue on. D, the fire chief shall not be a member of the bargaining team or an alternate, but the fire chief or a management level representative from the fire department may be available to the city bargaining team for consultation purposes with respect to any provision affecting the operations of the department. Section E, this is where we need the information from you, and I'm assuming that you're gonna caucus about this. The initial members of the bargaining team for the association shall be, and I just placed Rafael and you because those are the ones that I knew that were already gonna be there, and then of course, if any of those are the lead negotiators, those are not counted in the 6. So, okay. F, only the duly designated bargaining team members authorized to sit at the table shall be allowed to participate in the negotiations, except as otherwise agreed by the chief negotiators. Further, the negotiations shall be conducted primarily through the chief negotiators or a designee. And I just wanted to note, I think that all of these provisions are the same except for that first one that changes it to 6 members, and of course the information on who the current bargaining members are. But if I recall, and I'm going to go through each one, I don't believe that there were any changes made to this. G, the chief negotiator of any team may designate an alternate chief negotiator for any given session by providing no less than 24 hours notice of an alternate designation to the chief negotiator for the opposing negotiation team. H, either party may designate alternates to substitute for any member of its respective team except the chief negotiator, but notice of any such substitution must be made to the opposing chief negotiator at least 24 hours in advance of any scheduled session. Now, you know, when it comes to emergency situations, I think that we can, I'm sure that we will both work together, such as somebody getting diagnosed with COVID or a family emergency, things like that. So I don't mean for any of this to prevent any of that. We're here to work together and recognize the human element of what we're doing. Okay. The parties recognize, stipulate, and agree that the collective bargaining process is being conducted primarily through meetings of the respective bargaining teams. A quorum must be established by both bargaining teams in order to commence a bargaining session. The quorum for the association shall consist of the chief negotiator and no less than 2 members. A quorum for the city shall consist of the chief negotiator and 1 member. The party with a quorum may, at its discretion, waive the quorum requirement for the other party for discussion purposes, but no TA shall be signed under these circumstances. And this is the same from last year. So if we need to have any discussion on the quorum, just let me know. J, nothing in these ground rules shall prevent or preclude each bargaining team from having members present for purposes of consultation and confirmation of facts, figures, processes, and procedures. Each bargaining team may freely consult and seek advice from respective personnel who may sit behind the team and be available for consultation. We'll go to section 2, authority of the chief negotiators. A, the chief negotiator for each party shall have the authority to lead the negotiations and shall be responsible for maintaining order with respect to his or her respective bargaining team. B, only the chief negotiator of each party may authorize and allow members of the bargaining team to address a point or make a presentation. C, the chief negotiator for each party, with the consent of the bargaining team, may make tentative agreements, which we call TAs, or commitments regarding specific terms and conditions raised in the contract negotiations. Tentative agreements that are in writing and initialed by the chief negotiator shall be treated as concluded and off the table, thereby allowing the parties to proceed to other issues. B, the parties understand and agree that tentative agreements shall not be implemented during the bargaining process. All tentative agreements remain subject to final formal approval of the contract document by the City of Laredo City Council under a duly posted and action item posted in compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, and approval by the majority vote of the association and its members, consistent with their internal processes, procedures, and bylaws in accordance with the requirements of Section 174.152 of the Texas Local Government Code. And that is the chapter on collective bargaining for police and fire. Section 3, negotiation sessions. The parties shall meet and agree upon a negotiation schedule. The chief negotiators may, by mutual consent, postpone or reschedule a meeting. Negotiation sessions shall be scheduled to allow for up to 8 hours of negotiations and caucus time, and will not last more than 8 hours unless circumstances dictate otherwise, as determined by the respective bargaining teams. Now, this particular section was changed a little bit. I have been involved in negotiation sessions that last, 12 plus hours. And when we get to that point, it seems that sometimes people lose focus on what the actual issue is, and people get tired. And so the purpose of this is not to have such a long session that nothing gets done and wheels are spun. But what we want to do is, if it requires more than 8 hours, then we either continue it to the next day, pursuant to as long as it's in compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, or schedule a session that's really close thereto. Okay, so that's not. The proposal is not to limit any time of time. It's just to make sure that we have productive time,
Yes.
and make sure that we move efficiently. C, the frequency, the time, and the number of meetings shall be scheduled with due regard to the impasse deadlines imposed under Section 174.152 of the Texas Local Government Code, whereas otherwise extended by written agreement. D, during the negotiation sessions, either party may request a break or caucus during the negotiation sessions. Section 4, schedule of presentation for proposals. And I kind of briefly touched on this, but it's going to be part of the ground rules so that it's established. Section A, the initial meeting shall be for the following purposes, and today is the initial meeting. Number 1, to set the initial identity of each bargaining team. Number 2, discussion and adoption of the ground rules. And number 3, general discussion of the schedule format, structure, and content of the negotiations. B, the collective bargaining process for purposes of impasse deadlines under Chapter 174 Texas Local Government Code shall not commence until the first scheduled bargaining meeting in which a substantive proposal is tendered by one of the parties. This shall be denominated as the first bargaining meeting for purposes of Chapter 174 Texas Local Government Code. And what that does is that establishes that's when the 60-day timeline doesn't start today. We're basically kind of just doing very administrative and logistics portions right now. But we'll start the timeline when we, basically at the next meeting where the proposals will start going across the table. C, the party's goal is that the fourth bargaining meeting shall be the last meeting any new initial proposals may be submitted in writing and presented by either negotiation team, subject to any mutually agreed modification of the schedule. Now, I believe that last year it was 3 bargaining meetings. I don't know, when I was looking at it, I know that I have a lot of information that I need to digest and I need to discuss with my clients and the people I represent. So that's why I proposed a 4th bargaining meeting, and with the idea that we're gonna set some meetings pretty frequently and pretty often. Okay, so that's where I'm coming from. If you have any concerns or any discussion on that, I'd be happy to discuss that with you after your caucus. But I just wanna give you my reasoning. Section 5, news releases printed matter. A, during the negotiations, neither party shall unilaterally issue news releases or hold any press conferences in any form or issue any other printed material regarding the events during negotiations or the status of the negotiations. B, requests for comment or information by any representatives of the media shall be referred to the chief negotiator for each party, each of whom is authorized to handle the inquiry at hand in their own discretion, consistent with the spirit of these ground rules. C, when the parties agree that a news release is desirable, such release shall be jointly prepared and released by the parties. A short statement of a non-specific nature, I think I need to put A in there. That's a typo. Of a non-specific nature may be issued by either the chief negotiator, upon the request of the media, and such statement shall not be considered as a violation of this section. So just note that I'm adding just, fixing some words that are missing, that being A and B. A short statement of a non-specific nature, and then issued by either the chief negotiator. Oh, you know what, the B doesn't belong there. Okay, so it's only A right before non-specific. Okay, on D, in the event impasse is defined by Chapter 174 Texas Local Government Code is reached, the parties may at that time unilaterally communicate with the press or the public. These are, everything under the news releases and printed matters is the same as the previous ground rules that were agreed to. 6, contacts during negotiations. The association agrees that no member of the bargaining team and no member or representatives of the association will actively engage in any bargaining talks with any elected official in the city of Laredo during any stage of the negotiations with respect to any issues that are the subjects of bargaining and negotiations. Now this particular section is a little bit different in that it's not just the bargaining team, but we're including any members or representatives of the association. As you know, Chapter 174 of the Texas Local Government Code sets forth a standard called good faith bargaining. And when we sit down and we're talking, we have designated bargaining team members where the subjects, the mandatory and permissive subjects under Chapter 174 are discussed, are done here at the table. And that's one of the other purposes for the ground rules and discussing the logistics. So what we're doing here is that we ask that in order to move forward with good faith bargaining, that any discussions happen between the designated bargaining teams and any information needed or requested be done through each respective party, where we can obtain that from our people, we can obtain it from your people and exchange it, and the bargaining is actually done here at the table. B, the city agrees to the same terms with regard to contacting, directing, and encouraging any such contact with the association bargaining team during any stage of the negotiations with respect to any issues that may be the subject of bargaining and negotiations. This section applies only during the original 60 days of bargaining as defined by these ground rules and any agreed extensions. 7, contract document. The contract document shall be created and maintained in an MS Word format, and I don't know if that's correct or what y'all prefer. That's what was done in 2018. During the negotiations, a draft of the document shall be maintained by the city's chief negotiator. An adequate number of copies of all proposals and/or counter proposals shall be provided to the members of the respective opposite bargaining team for use during the negotiation sessions. Copies of the draft document shall be made available to the association's chief negotiator and/or the association president upon request and within a reasonable time for use at the negotiation sessions. The final version of the negotiated contract shall be maintained by the association secretary as well as by the city secretary on behalf of the city of Laredo. E, the parties agree that it shall not be necessary to record the negotiation sessions. However, either party may utilize note takers during the meetings. The parties agree that there shall not be any surreptitious recording of the negotiation sessions. Who put that hard word in there last year? Or last week? So everything here, if I recall, is the same. This is where I have committed that I will send emails to you. I don't know that it necessarily has to be in the ground rules, but I would ask the same if you could email at least a document when we get paper, if I could get an email as well, because it would be easier to work off of.
Okay.
So if you want to include that in the, maybe we can just say we would also include a courtesy copy. We can put a little sentence in there, an email courtesy copy, and we can just do that between the chief negotiators. So there's not a lot of copies going around. So I may want to add that, like to be, each chief negotiator will email a copy of the proposal or counter proposal to the other chief negotiator. Oh, and the city, because of circumstances have changed since 2018 with COVID and Zoom and all of these ways and the way that the city runs its public meetings. So in the spirit of the way that public meetings are run, this public meeting is being live streamed so that it's available to the public. And pursuant to the way that the city does the things, it also will, it's being recorded and will be archived and available. And I believe it's on the YouTube channel and
It'll be available on YouTube and through the Swagit system that the city of Laredo Public Access Channel uses.
okay. So that's something new and something that, something that's developed, I guess, on how the public meetings have evolved. Section 8, open meetings. A, the parties agree that the negotiation sessions, except for team caucuses and any mediated sessions, are open to the public to the fullest extent provided for by Chapter 174 of the Texas Local Government Code. I just want to mention something on that. I have had some circumstances where at the end of the negotiation session, when there's an issue that we need mediated, and I don't know if y'all have ever used FMCS, the Federal Mediator and Conciliation Service. It's a free service it's actually paid by taxpayer dollars, but it's a free service to help on labor negotiations and labor issues. And if for some reason we need or have one of those mediators come in, I think one of the rules for them, if we're under the FMCS, is that mediations are confidential, but we would need to address that issue if and when it ever came. But I just needed to note that because that may be something that, if it went there, I've just had recent experience with that, the confidentiality of an FMCS mediation. But we can deal with that, if that ever occurs. 9, bargaining process deadlines. A, the parties intend to conclude the bargaining process within the impasse deadlines contemplated by Section 174.153 of the Texas Local Government Code. That is it should say TLGC. Subject to duly executed extensions in writing as authorized by law. B, each party reserves their statutory and other legal rights with respect to the bargaining process unless modifications are agreed to in writing. 10, negotiating time for bargaining unit members. This is all the same as well. A, the duly designated members of the association's bargaining team shall be allowed to attend bargaining sessions while on duty, subject to the discretion of the fire chief due to the staffing needs of the department as determined by the fire chief. B, members of the bargaining unit who are not named members of the bargaining team and who wish to attend a bargaining session as spectators may do so only on their own time. No special prerogative or privilege shall be exercised to accommodate leave requests for personnel who are not named members of the bargaining team. And then 11, miscellaneous provisions. These ground rules being the subject of mutual agreement between the parties may be modified by agreement at any time to serve the interests of the bargaining process, provided, however, that any modification to these ground rules must be in writing and signed by each chief negotiator. And B, these ground rules are to be self-enforced as procedural rules for the orderly conduct of business. The parties do not intend that these rules are binding as contractual provisions. And then it has the signature lines for the chief negotiators, and it outlines the bargaining team members for each party, the city, and as well as the association. And so that is those are the proposed ground rules to govern our collective bargaining sessions and negotiations. If you have any questions now, I'd be happy to take them, or if you'd like to caucus and then come back, you just let us know.
Where would the link to this podcast?
It is on the agenda itself, it is posted on the agenda.
Okay,
So,
okay.
no, on the actual posting, and just so you know, because these meetings are public by, under chapter 174, we have to post, so when we do a schedule, we have to have at least 72 hours in order to be able to post the meeting. And under the posting, the link to the actual broadcast, so that if somebody sees it and can't be here in person, but they want to look at it, they're able to watch it live stream. I think there's like a 25-second delay, but they can watch it live, and it will be available in an archive form at the same, is it the same link in the middle?
It should be at the same link, and then again, on the City of Laredo YouTube channel as well.
And at the time we set the meeting, from when we set up the meeting, the city will take care of the posting and the actual link.
Yes, we will be in charge of making sure that everything is posted, and that we have everything set up for the live streaming and the recording and the archiving.
Do you have any questions?
Yeah. You want to caucus first, or start with the questions now?
I think before we caucus, I guess the simple question, do you have a copy of the previous slides?
I do. I can email those to you as well. I'll email them. I'll just reply to that email, and I have the last rules that I have signed were from 2018. Okay.
That's fine. As long as we get the copies first, and then, right? I think we're ready to copies.
Okay. Did you need paper copies of the previous ones, or is an email fine?
I prefer paper.
Okay. Let me.
We can do both.
I'm gonna email you, and I'll have them printed out. And how many copies do you need? 5.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So we're gonna caucus.
The 5 copies from
Yes. Oh, yeah, I'm gonna email. Right. Okay, so I guess we'll all caucus, and I think it's 11:04.
Okay.
All the times are wrong, or every time, yeah, it's 11:04. Everything's different. Okay. And then just let us know whenever you're ready.
Okay. Ready?
At this time, we did look over the proposed ground rules and the ones from the previous year, or the previous negotiations. Right now, we want to be able to review them, and take it back to the people that are not actually currently present, because there's an issue that was brought up where apparently one of the signatures here, he doesn't remember signing, and the other man was our union president, he passed away. So, like, I can't go ahead and say, no, okay, this is legit, when the other member actually clearly doesn't remember actually signing.
Do you have a copy of the 2018 ground rules in your files?
No. But actually, that's another thing I need to go look at, because from the archive I have with our files, there's no ground rules there. So in 2018. So that's what I'm saying. Our secretary is the one that states that he doesn't remember signing anything. The signature from our former union president, Rolando Solis, it is it is recognizable, but since he's no longer here, I can't ask him.
Okay.
What did he sign, what was it specifically? Because even
Okay.
then I'm being told, hey, is there any initials on any other papers where it was, was agreed to, any changes were made?
Our firm handled, the 2018 negotiations, and this is directly from our file. So that's where we derived that one. And I actually have what I emailed you was a colored copy of the actual, I know it didn't print out in color, I didn't ask Carol to, but, I sent you what we have, and it's a scanned colored copy, and that's what is, in our file. And
So like I say, I just request time to, like I say, take it back to the
Sure.
members that aren't currently present.
Just
So,
to review it.
Just to review it, because we went through it. We had issues, but like I say, it wouldn't be, safe to basically feel appropriate to be able to sign something where I can't refer to the previous people that aren't present in this room.
Okay.
Um,
So this is the issue that I'm presented with, since we're still dealing with the logistics and the ground rules. Are we, at the next meeting, we're still gonna be dealing with ground rules? Do you anticipate preparing to present proposals then?
We would like to propose our ground rules if that's understandable.
Okay, well, I'm just concerned about, when the 60 days start, I guess, is what I'm saying. Are we gonna need another meeting in order to adopt the ground rules and get the logistics part out before we actually start exchanging proposals?
I would say yes. I would say one more meeting just to make sure that we're all on the same page as far as the purpose, the ground rules, the logistics of
Okay,
this whole
and that's all I needed to make
Yes.
clear, okay.
And it's just, I want to be, like I say, we want to be sure that what we're going through is specifically accurate, from the past
Absolutely.
and completely agreeable on both parties.
Absolutely. Was there, well, there's a couple of questions that I have just generally. Number one, do you know who the chief negotiators are, or have you made that determination
Yes,
yet?
we
Okay,
Yes.
and who's that gonna be?
That's going to be myself, Gabriel Lozano,
Okay,
and my second is going to be Oscar Rendon.
okay. Just so I know who to address correspondence to and make sure that, okay. And, I'll obtain, after the
I'll give you
session,
my email.
I'll get your email from there.
Yes.
And then, secondly, just general issues, are you comfortable just talking about the general issues that you may have with anything in the ground rules, that way we can also be looking at it? Or you need
Yeah,
that?
if you want, we can address the issues that we saw that might be in some conflict for us.
Okay,
Starting immediately, actually on the section 2, letter A, each, just, I guess for clarification, each representative bargaining team shall consist of no more than 6 members, not counting the chief negotiator. So this puts us at 7 or 8 since,
it would be, my intention was 8. So we can add S, chief negotiators, or in parentheses, but the way I read it in the intent that I was trying to explain was that there's a section for each of, where we designate our chief negotiators, and those chief negotiators do not count towards that number 6.
Okay.
then the only reason it was brought up because, the same verbiage was on this one, but the negotiator was included in the 6.
Oh, it
Actually, the
was?
7, yes.
Let me see,
The 2018 one, the assistant one was also a part of the negotiation team.
let me see.
So
She signed, Ms. Collazo signed. She was a negotiator, okay.
Oh, yes, okay.
I think she just signed as far as it knows.
Okay, and the deal is that I wanted there to be, normally when we designate teams, I just didn't want it to be too small or too big, and I wanted to be, for everybody to be able to have the resources there. So then that's one of the reasons I said, okay, well, we need chief negotiators there no matter what.
Yes.
They're part of the team, but for the extra part, that's why we decided on 6, and we're willing to discuss that number.
Okay. Yeah, that's the only question I have, because
Sure.
I say in the previous one, it did include it. I'm like, okay, so now it might be limited to one less or one. So the next one was.
See, oh yes, that's right. And if you look at the previous one that I provided, that I know that you're still confirming, on that bargaining team, section A, it said each respective bargaining team shall consist no more of 5 members. Well, there was a discrepancy on the numbers, number one. But then it said not counting the chief negotiator seated at the table.
So when we read that, actually, one of the gentlemen said, so they are including it because it's 4, but they're highlighting 5 because of the chief negotiator. Like, I'm not sure that was actually.
Okay, no, that's not the intent.
Yeah,
And
that
if
was
we
the
need to, if we're willing to consider clarifying language. The intent is that we can we're designating 2 chief negotiators, or lead negotiators on each team, and then the 6 members, does not include them. So the chief negotiators don't, count against the 6.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Next issue was.
Well, we're just gonna name as far as the team.
Oh, yeah,
That way
yeah.
you guys have all the information as well.
Yeah, we'll, I'm sure that you need to, do you have the members of your
Yes,
team?
we have the name of the members.
Okay.
The 6 besides the 2 besides the 2 negotiators, you wanna write it down?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
So first off, it would be Jose Antonio Laniz. Second would be Aidan Alvarado.
Ivan, A.
Alvarado, yes.
A-I? D-A-N?
A-I-D-A-N,
Yes, Aiden.
Aiden.
Third one would be Victor Torres. Fourth one would be Rafael Torres.
The next one is Zone Gwen. And the last individual will be Albert Chapa.
Where's that name from? I remember, oh, like,
Yeah,
fire.
yes.
Yes.
So next issue was, no, there was,
Oh,
Yeah,
as
we-
far as the change for the 4th bargaining meeting,
that
that was not an issue, I think.
that we don't have an issue.
It would benefit.
I know you expressed that there was a change in between then and now. We don't have an issue with that,
Okay.
so.
I just know there's a lot of information that I need to digest, and I need my team to compile for me in order to be able to discuss it with them. So, and I figured that y'all had information that you're compiling as well.
Yes. So, I mean, I think it benefits both sides,
Okay.
where it gives us a lot, so
A
it's a little bit more time, yeah.
Right.
The next one would be 6A. In 6A, we actually want to, if possible, strike this, because it limits us, as a constituents to be able to talk to any council member in any purpose or in any capacity. In the past, it's been proposed, and we've been in opposition of it in the previous 2 contract negotiations with the city. For the simple reason is that it also limits our activities that when we do work with a city or a city council member in different aspects throughout functions that they might have, or just simple talks that we might have.
Okay. Well, this is not intended to do that.
Mhm.
This is not intended to cut off any and all communications with the city council members. What this is doing, and I'd be happy to consider some clarifying language on this, but what this is doing is during the 60-day, or during the bargaining period that starts today, and includes the 60-day, but the bargaining period that has begun since we've had our initial meeting, that the mandatory subjects of the mandatory and any of the subjects that we talk about here today, such as wages, leave, things that are part of the contract are discussed here at the table and with us, because we represent the city council and the city manager and the city as a whole. So we're the designated bargaining team pursuant to the good faith negotiations under Chapter 174 and the commitments that we've made in our contract and to our intent to bargain, that all the conversations and information exchange should happen here. Because then it becomes very difficult to, if you're talking to people outside and then they come and ask questions, and it becomes this, trying to corral a lot of different things that are happening when that's the reason that we're designating bargaining teams. And we have, we're sitting at the table to discuss these issues in an open, and transparent way and be informed. And so that is it. So the term is from the time that we're bargaining, it's only with regard to the subjects. It doesn't prevent you from going and talking to any council member or going to have lunch with them or seeing them in functions. But what it does say is that while we're doing the negotiation happens here at the table and not at that function. Okay? So that's the only intent. And you still have that ability. And I think it falls within the parameters of what good faith bargaining is and why we're here. And that's the only that's all that says. Okay.
Yeah, like I say, it's been an issue in the past with the association and the city during the collective bargaining, where it's been in opposition and there's been issues arise from it. The language that we got and how we interpret it is that it would bar us from complete talks with any councilman.
Yeah, and that's not the intent. I'm glad that you brought that up, because that is not the intent. You have that ability. There's no.
Because when I'm mistaken, the last time that was the intent.
Oh, okay. No.
So like.
Let's.
So like I say, in good faith negotiations, it would be permissible to be done at the table, where there's no outside entities that would be either for a reason to be mentioned what was brought at the table.
Okay.
But like I say, just the simple language we have is like, it just bars us. Not only that, is you're gonna have, since you are the city and you're negotiating on their part, the fact that doesn't bar you from not influencing, from having those talks, as
right.
opposed to us, we have no avenue
to make our voices
constituents.
So
not only that, also the verbiage is here is basically any association member. Because of the way it's worked out, there might be city councilmen that, have family or in between where they ask about it. Then that would be in direct violation of this, which is not our intent. We don't want that. So that's why
So you want to be able to talk about that outside of the table?
No.
Oh,
We're just saying that we can control our membership as a whole either.
Right.
So they can listen onto this meeting right now, and they could have that conversation with any
right.
city elected official.
And I understand.
That would not be under our control to begin with also. So we're just kind of like, the language there kind of interferes with that thought process that it could happen and it would just be out of our control.
I understand that part. Okay. And part of it is that on a provision such as this, to have the bargaining here at the table, part of that is the education not only of my team, but your team and your membership as well, and my people. So you hear where we're coming from, and so I want you to consider that and let us know what you counter propose. I'm going to caucus with my team after this, and I'll let you know if we need to come sit back down or we can discuss it at the next meeting.
Okay.
But I think that issue is really important to protect the integrity of the process.
Yes, it is.
And I understand that you want to have that you have a voice. And that you do as constituents. So this is only for this short bargaining period, and it is quite short. And this is the time, because as I represent the city and the city council, it's my duty and my obligation to advise them. And they actually have access. That's one of the other reasons that that this is being recorded and live streamed and will be archived and available, so that anybody, whether it be a city council member, anybody from the city, a member of the public, another firefighter, one of your members of the association, that they can see for themselves. And if they have questions, they can, they can come to you as the association, or the city can come to me, and pose those questions, and that we can discuss them here at the table. So for issues of bargaining, this is the podium. This is where you bring those concerns.
Yes.
And that's where that comes from.
Yes, we're completely in agreement to that, because of bargaining in good faith.
Right.
That's, all our intent for it is just the language, and like I say, we were always strongly opposed to it because it kind of interrupts functions of how.
And that's not the intent.
Yeah,
We're
that's
not-
not the intent.
The intent in that is not to say, okay, you go to the room and stay there,
Yeah.
no,
You're not
nothing
barred
like
from
that.
completely
What we're talking about is only the subject
Yes,
of
okay.
bargaining, and then, if for some reason we're talking about, for instance, the wages, which is always one of the big issues in any collective bargaining session. That you're at a function and you start talking to a council member or another elected official about those wages, about stuff that we're talking about here. That's the thing that I think is inappropriate, and that we're trying to make sure happens here at the table, so that if there's questions, that we can present the information or look for the information here and present it in a public manner.
Yes.
And so that's the thing. And I hope that I explained it enough, and if you have any other concerns in the meantime, as a chief negotiator, don't hesitate to reach out to me, and I will answer your questions and provide you with any further information that you need prior to the next meeting. Okay?
Just a quick question, what would be some of the repercussions for violating these?
Well, these ground rules are a matter of procedure at this point. I think that in order to facilitate good faith negotiations and to move this forward and achieve a contract, I think that's kind of the impetus for us to follow the ground rules, follow the good faith bargaining requirement, and talk about the items here. I think that, this is not, the way that this is we're kind of self-enforcing and self-governing. So per se, there's not a breach of contract or any kind of.
It's to maintain structure.
Straight-
It's also building trust,
Right.
building trust.
And that's where I was going. It's not per se like, this is okay, this is done. What happens then is it throws the track off into any kind of headway or any kind of solutions that we can come through. And it really does affect the integrity of the process and the ability of communication and trust to be built amongst the two teams. And to be able to just find a solution. So ultimately, the ultimate repercussion is that we start working against each other rather than together. And I think the main purpose of this is working together, because I think if you think about it, we all have the same goals. We're just dealing with different issues on different sides. And that's where it is. That's what it comes down to.
I think that we're gonna have this.
Do we need a caucus?
Just really quick.
Yeah, that's fine.
Just really quick.
Yeah, it'll probably be like a minute.
And it's all in trying to do perspective of the issue. Tony, you want?
Yeah, I mean, we wholeheartedly believe in this, section of the contract during negotiations is something that, we intend to abide by and we intend to follow. It's not something that, we don't want it there because we intend to do something that, we shouldn't be doing, basically. But we just overall don't want, appearances or to get misconstrued in any way that we're doing certain things, just by an appearance, by, us talking to certain individuals, and it's something that, sometimes we might not have any control with just the appearance of it. So, I mean, that's basically it, but, we intend to wholeheartedly, abide by it, but it's something that, we will further discuss and, we will get back with a counter proposal as well.
Absolutely, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that concern. Okay.
Other than that, that was,
So just maybe, I guess we put them, just for when the initial members of the bargaining team, we were thinking to also add, a sentence saying, with the purpose of alternate members may be past or present, past or current members.
Where is it at? So I can follow, sorry.
Section 2E, the first section 2, there's two.
Oh, I messed up on that, I'm sorry. The first 2E, okay, there we go.
The first 2E, where
Yeah.
it says, the bargaining team.
Sorry about that.
Basically, we want to add a sentence at the end of it saying alternate members may be past or current members of the association.
and the intent of this is just as a reference point because there were other members involved during different contract negotiation, that, or had in, that would affect the contract or a better understanding on contract. Where,
Okay.
that it might be out of our scope or remembrance. So that's just the intent of that one.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll look at that issue, but and I think that that's probably something that y'all have to do with, like with your bylaws and how you comprise your negotiation team. So I understand that.
Yeah, it's more to bring them in as a reference point, or if there's any question of intent of the article when it was negotiated, because some of these articles were preceding us, some of them we had a hand in it, but we weren't specifically the ones negotiating it. So just basically to clear up intent and,
Sure.
Or as a reference point.
I think, yeah, and I think I think that within the ground rules, that is also addressed, that we're able to bring in people with historical knowledge and
Okay.
reference points. So I don't think that that's prohibited at all. They don't necessarily have to be part of your bargaining team, but you decide who's on your team.
Yes.
So, but I can't do that for you. So, so I understand, and I understand that, and we'll consider that. Okay?
That pretty much
Sorry,
sums
that
up.
concludes our concerns of the board,
Okay.
unless you guys have any.
No, I think we're gonna wait to see what we receive from you, and we can discuss it at the next meeting, which brings, I guess, us to the next point is available dates.
Okay.
I think that we probably need to talk about that at least, not that we don't have to solidify it now, but I know that Ralph had sent over some of his dates, and I'm going to, he has June, he took off 10th, but he has June 15th, 21, and 22, July 11th through 15th, and 18th through 22. I don't know, and that's just when he was available. I don't know if you need him for the next meeting on the ground rules, so
We can go ahead.
so we may be able to do something on that, maybe on the June 10th date, possibly. I need to, of course, confirm with my team, but let's at least come up with a range of dates so that we can confirm in the next week or the next, I guess Monday or Tuesday. We can visit with each other's teams and then confirm by email how to set the schedule.
Yeah, as far as the next meeting, it's mostly, I guess, on you guys, when your side is available.
Yeah.
Because from here to June 15th, I mean, most of us are local, so it's not like we have to accommodate with travel plans.
Okay. So we can probably look at maybe, at least for the next two meetings, what I'm gonna look at is June 10th to finish up the initial meeting, the initial portion of the meeting and do the ground rules and whatever else is left.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can look at June 15th to maybe be the first bargaining session.
Okay.
And if for some reason that is not gonna work with my team, we will provide you with alternate dates just in that, very close to those dates.
Okay.
Okay? Well, you're good? Okay, I'll have to check with everybody.
Yes, that's fine.
But at least we can set up those two, and in the meantime, what I'm gonna be doing my homework, and I'll email you on Monday or Tuesday with dates after that, because I think we kind of need to establish it, especially with Ralph, if he's gonna participate in it, and I need to establish it with mine.
And just to get an understanding, what do you foresee the frequency of the meetings?
I need to look at the calendar. One of the things that I have discovered during collective bargaining is sometimes when we have back-to-back meetings, we don't get a lot accomplished, especially when we're dealing with like big issues. I think that issues that are not complicated and that are fairly almost very agreeable from this onset. Like if we deal with the easier proposals and the easier articles at the beginning, we can probably schedule back-to-back meetings in those kinds of instances. And maybe get all the easy stuff out of the way and then hit the meaty stuff later. When we hit things that require a lot of information, a lot of background, research, or we need to go see operation logistically how things work on the proposals, that'll take, we'll probably have maybe once a week, something like that. So, and I know during the summer, some people have vacations and stuff. Of course, we'll be considerate of that to make sure that the team members are there. What I'll also do, if I have any dates that I'm not available, I'll send you those ranges as well. But I want to, I want to set a fairly frequent schedule, but with enough time that we can work together and make sure that we have all the proper information to make informative, informative proposals and considerations on those.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes, yes.
So, anything else?
Not from our end.
Okay,
Right now, I think we're,
okay, yeah, and I think at least for today's session, I think that we've hit on all the big things, and then we'll confirm June 10th and set up the posting and everything, and I'll copy you on that. And we will,
So just to be clear, June 10th, we're just gonna finalize this. You all want to start negotiations at that time?
I think, I need to meet with my team, but I think we're gonna look at June 10th and June 15th and decide when the first bargaining session starts.
Okay, good.
So, okay?
yes, yes, it's good.
So I think that's probably the only big question left that we're gonna have to answer in the meantime.
Okay.
Okay? All right. Well, it was very nice meeting you.
It's nice meeting you, man.
And thank you for a good first session. I look forward to working with everybody.
Likewise.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.